Either we make small changes to our trails, moving towards the right direction, or we remove the feature entirely. I don't think threatening to remove features from your game is a good PR move, Star Stable. Star Stable Online is the largest horse game MMO in the world, and on the 30th of April 2026, they made this post about their Trailblazer, basically a free battle pass in-game, saying that they can remove it if they want to. This comes on the heels of some changes made to the trails in March, which players were not happy with, and subsequently resulted in players trying to boycott this change by not completing the Trailblazer. And instead of listening to the players' upset, SSO doubled down and decided to threaten players. Well done, SSO! What good PR design! But what is the Trailblazer? Why were players angry about the changes in the first place? And why is Star Stable so gung-ho about keeping them? My name is Rattle, I chat about horse games. If you like this type of content, be sure to like and subscribe. And thank you to my Ko-Fi supporters for, as always, being awesome. Let's get into it. What is the Trailblazer? On the 1st of July 2024, Star Stable launched their first ever Trailblazer, the Trail of Dawn. As stated, it functions a lot like a battle pass. Every time you reach a new milestone in the trail, you received a new reward. There is one key difference: you don't have to pay for this battle pass, which is nice, and which makes sense because SSO is not a free-to-play game. It is a pay-to-play game, costing about $80 to buy a lifetime membership, or you can subscribe monthly. And if you want to buy more stuff, it can cost you up to $120 for a horse, some gear, and tack. No, I'm not kidding. The original Trailblazer gave 35 rewards in total, and was a mixture of pretty decent rewards like gear and tack, and not so great rewards, which were just flowers you could pick in the world yourself. To level up the trail was simple enough. Every day you got 450 points for logging in, 100 points for the first $5 or quests completed, then 80 points for the next 5, 30 for the next, until it went down to 10. Another way to level up the trail was by collecting light in the Valedale Woods. I like that name, Valedale. It took a lot longer because every light only gave you 1 point, but it was a grinding spot for a lot of players. You logged on, played for a couple of hours, ran around picking up light, reached a new milestone, and then headed off again. Simple. Overall, the impression was a mixed response. Some players loved it, others didn't. But we couldn't deny that the Trailblazers did give players free rewards. And it did give players at least a reason to log in. Although it felt a bit mobile game-like, it was in a lot of ways a welcome addition to the game. Especially since it gave players freedom to basically do the Trailblazer at their own pace. Some logged in daily to do 2 milestones, and others would log in over the weekend to do 10. Freedom of choice. Then, on the 3rd of March 2026, Star Stable made a new announcement.
I am going to update you on some of the improvements we are making for Trailblazer tracks. The biggest change is that your first 4 activities will give you now 120 points instead of just 100. You'll keep get the same amount of points for activities from 5 to 12, then it will drop to 0. Regular and bonus day gatherables also no longer earn points. Less is more. Instead of 35 milestones, we are downsizing to 25 bigger ones. To keep things more interesting, Trailblazer tracks will take at least 16 days to complete. Well, this is enough change for one video, I think.
So, a lot of changes. The best one being less rewards, but better rewards, so less clutter. Great. And worst one being you can't grind anymore. You now have to log in at least 16 to 17 times during the Trailblazer to get all the rewards. In one update, one of the biggest appeals of the Trailblazer, being able to do it at your own pace, was completely removed, and players were left damned confused by the change. Another problem was if you figured out there was a Trailblazer 1 week before it ended, tough shit, you're not going to be able to finish it, which meant the Trailblazer, instead of being a sort of relaxed gameplay style, suddenly indirectly became quite stressful, because if you didn't log in, you're going to miss out. Now, a lot of theories started swirling around about why these changes were made. Before I get into the actual theories, I have my own theory, and that is that Star Stable's code is broken and they cannot have 2 different Firefly types in the game. Basically, Valedale was for the longest time the only place you could pick up fireflies. But when they added Marchingast Castle, the new area, they added a new type of firefly you can pick up. Directly after this, Marching Gas Trailblazer came out, and lo and behold, that's when the changes were made. So my theory is that the code is so broken, they can't have two distinct types of fireflies in-game. But that's just a theory. A game theory. No, I'm not doing that. Let's rather look at some of the other reasons, like Star Stable's own stated reason, which was, and I quote, "While we appreciate the grind, we also think sleep is important for our players' health. They worry about our health, but they're not concerned enough to stop releasing new horses and push us into buying star coins. Gotcha." This comment would be deleted on the same day, but that's not the only bizarre comment that would crop up from the Star Stable team. On the Discord Star Stable Embassy, where some of the social media team hangs out, one of the moderators made the following comment. "The completion rates were not ideal. It rewarded grinders way too much over everyone else, and the percentage of grinders versus normal players is just not comparable. Light was just... Imagine being able to infinitely grind something meant to reward what we call stickiness, or coming back several times to the game. Completely breaks the system. It already provides basically infinite Jorvik shillings. I get it. It was insane as a player being able to do everything at once. I know I'd love that as a player, but we have to keep things balanced." Yeah, we don't actually want to do what players want. We just want to design the game in such a way that you are forced to play it, not just because you want to play it. God, I hate modern gaming. This comment basically confirmed the suspicion that SSO was pushing for daily logins. They wanted players to play every day, not just for longer hours. Understandably, players were again kind of furious, and the moderator would just dig in deeper by making a second comment. "We are listening, we really are, but this is our job, and contrary to popular Reddit threads, we are damn good at it." Are you sure about that? Because you left the Discord server after this. But of course, this was not the end of the story. Players started to boycott these changes, basically refusing to log into SSO to force them to reverse the changes and go back to how it was. Now, a lot of players didn't agree with the boycott, to be fair. They said that they preferred the new way of doing it, logging in daily, and that it actually made it easier to complete the Trailblazer. A lot of players claimed that. But the problem was that the original basically gave you more options to complete it. As I stated before, you could either log in daily or you could grind for hours when the mood struck you. But this change specifically took away any choice, which was why the players wanted to boycott. So they weren't against the idea of having different playstyles, they wanted the option to have more playstyles. March came and went, the trail came and went, the Equestrian Festival came and went, and then on the 30th of April 2026, they finally gave us an update on the future for the Trailblazer. Let me refresh your memory. Either we make small changes to our trails, moving towards the right direction, or we remove the feature entirely. Like, who the f signed off on this? The response to this post thus far has been, as you can imagine, not great. Players feel a mixture of threatened and surprised by the lack of shits given from the social media team. They accused SSO of deliberately making it worse by putting the design director front and center, sipping tea. I don't think that was a good move. But, to be fair, this was an image they reused from the previous announcement of the Trailblazer at the beginning of March. So yeah, although not a great pick, I don't think it was a deliberate choice to just piss players off. Now, although the response to this post was not very positive, they did make one change to accommodate players. They said that over the weekends you could get double points for the Trailblazer. This was better, definitely, but still did not do what players wanted. They wanted the freedom to play without those artificial restrictions the development team had put on them. But now we have to get into the meat of it, because a lot of accusations and theories are making the rounds. For example, does the Trailblazer have anything to do with the European Commission investigation? For those who might not know, SSO is currently being investigated by the European Commission for violating child advertising laws. You can learn a lot more from these 3 videos where I go into depth into what precisely all of this is about. But suffice it to say, this investigation is looking into online practices aimed at kids. And they are trying to protect them by ensuring that companies don't exploit kids by using FOMO. The argument being put forth is that SSO must comply with these regulations, which is why they specifically removed grinding from the game, because grinding is unhealthy. But this theory doesn't hold water, because nowhere in the document is grinding ever mentioned. The investigation and possible new regulation will focus on how companies use FOMO to get kids to buy. This is really the core of it. Grinding is not a problem. It's part of gameplay as long as it's done ethically, and it's not encouraging kids to buy stuff we're okay. And the Trailblazer is doing the opposite. It's actively keeping kids from buying because it's giving them free items. But the Trailblazer is possibly a response to this investigation, but for a different reason, to ensure SSO doesn't solely rely on FOMO to get people to buy. They technically are still relying on FOMO to get kids to log in, but that might be a sort of better way to get kids to play the game instead of forcing them to buy. The second reason that popped up for the change was SSO was trying to bump up daily logins. The argument goes like this: daily login and activity keep shareholders happy, because it looks like players are active in the game. A lot of players logging in throughout the week looks a lot better than a bunch of players logging in over the weekend and then not again until the next weekend. More commonly, it's called daily active users, or DAU, which denotes players who are, as you guessed it, active daily. Now this is a lot more complicated than just logging in every day. To get proper reading on DAUs, you have to first ask what counts as an active user, how many hours spent in the game will count to that number, or which activities will count to it being an active user. We don't really know what the parameters are for the DAUs in SSO, but we do know it is an important metric. The ideal is that 100% of your users are active daily, but that's never going to be the reality. So if around 20% of your users are active, then you have a pretty decent product. Now, to determine how many DAU Star Stable Online has is kind of difficult, as these numbers are not as commonly available. But we do know what it was between 2020 and 2021 during the lovely time of our dear pandemic. According to the article, their DAU went up to 39% during this period. That's almost double what you're aiming for. In total, 152,000 daily active users. So that is pretty good. But this was during a time when kids and adults alike had a lot of time at home. So although the growth is great, it's not necessarily a reflection of the current situation. It could very well be that they did drop DAUs, and of course in their revenue. In 2020 to 2021, we know they made a revenue of 44 million, according to this article. In 2024, they made 29 million. So this is a revenue drop of 29%. By those numbers alone, we can certainly make the argument that DAUs have dropped and that SSO is using the Trailblazer to try and bump the numbers up. But I think there is something a bit more important to consider than just their numbers: the climate around this time and what that impact had on them. SSO was one of the largest horse games in the world, but there's a caveat. During the pandemic, two very specific things happened. A lot of people started making horse games, which led to Kickstarters and Patreons, which meant that, like with other gaming genres, the horse game industry suddenly became saturated and the money became spread. Games like Rival Stars started making more horse breeds and gameplay, which meant that SSO's claim to fame, a wide variety of horse breeds, was not as unique as before. Although they still boast the widest variety of breeds, games like Red M or the Red M servers started catching up. With better graphics and far better gameplay, Red Dead Redemption 2, we can safely assume that it certainly attracted a lot of players. And then we have Star Equestrian, which was launched in 2023, and this thing is a drain on players' bank accounts. But the point is, every year we have new games and new Red M servers or Minecraft servers being published, creating more spaces for horse gamers to spend their money or log in daily. Oh, and Equinox was released, I guess. But it all comes down to the same thing. SSO more than likely is not at the top of the pile anymore. We have asked the question before, what game would kill SSO? And I don't think it's a single one. I think it's many. More and more games are clawing their way up the ladder, and SSO is desperately trying to stop them from, well, gobbling up players who are losing interest in their game. So I personally think the change is twofold. For one, the daily active users is not only an important metric to be able to grok what players engage with and what keeps their attention, it also looks good for shareholders who want to see players playing and not just, well, playing in their own time. Because they want players to create a habit. And that comes down to the next part of the reason they are doing this: psychology. The original Trailblazer was designed in what you would call a compulsion loop, which is, and I quote, a habitual design chain of activities that will be repeated to gain a neurochemical reward, a feeling of pleasure and/or relief from pain. Now, these designs can get very complicated, and they don't need to be a straight line. But the Trailblazer in particular used the compulsion loop: anticipation, action, reward, repeat. This is a very common compulsion loop, often found in looting type games. The biggest change they of course made was that it is now capped, which prevents you from, well, continuing play, and in turn results in you quitting the game. But there is actually a reason for why they would want you to quit, is to get you to log in the next day, and that is to get you to form a habit. In an article from Game Analytics, Designing Habit-Forming Games, they say the following: a player who gets used to playing your game through habit will keep coming back. And that's the key to forming a steady community of players in the long run. And I believe this is why SSO is so determined to keep the Trailblazer as a daily login and not a grind. Because the more times you log in every week, the better the chance you have at making it a habit. They're basically manipulating you into playing the game. That's literally it. It's a psychological trick. And that's also why, despite their threat, no, they won't remove it. Because if they did delete it, it would be a case of cutting your nose to spite your face. The Trailblazer is good for SSO. And I am begging them to delete it. I triple-double dare them. Go for it, Star Stable. Remove it. Let's see who is more pissed off, the players or the shareholders. But surprisingly, none of these types of changes is really new for Star Stable. Last year, they, for example, nerfed the Garden in-game, which was a way for players to get easy access to the in-game currency, Jorvik shillings, to purchase cool gear. SSO deliberately cut the amount of money you could get in that by more than half. And keep in mind, there is an in-game currency limit of 10,000 Jorvik shillings. And some of these items cost 9,900 Jorvik shillings. It was, according to Star Stable, just a bug they removed. Which makes it even funnier when we consider they will leave bugs in this game for years, but if there is anything that gives a player an edge, they will remove it in a heartbeat. But it's also bloody frustrating, because instead of designing good gameplay that keeps us engaged, they instead go for tricks and psychological manipulation. And I'm honestly sick of it. I'm sick of seeing these blatant game designs that try to trick you, to tempt you, or force you, or stumble you into something you never wanted to stumble into. Just make a game I want to play. Make a game that I am excited to log into. But that's never enough for companies anymore. I mean, at the end of the day, they really do have to ensure that you log in, not just that you want to log in. And that's why SSO changed the Trailblazer. I think it could really just be their code is fucked.